Welcome, everybody, to another episode here on the Digital Trade Show podcast. I'm your host, John Stamper. I'm here live in Columbus, Ohio at the ADHA's annual session. And very, very excited to have our next guest with us, Erin Howlett from Michigan. How you doing, Erin?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, John. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk with Erin a little bit about her journey. She's done a lot of things in the world of hygiene, and she also is going to talk a little bit about the Wellness Dentistry Network, which is some work that her and her team are doing in regards to implementation of the oral systemic link and all of that good stuff. So again, so excited to have you, and let's start with you and how you got to where you are today.
Great. Happy to share my story and excited to be here at ADHA's annual session. So I started 31 years ago in dental hygiene, graduated from school in Albany, New York, moved to Boston where I have some family, and was very fortunate right out of the gate, got a great full-time job and worked for 3 years, and I found that I was kind of hitting the ceiling as far as what I was able to accomplish. I kind of felt great that I was seeing kind of a great general population of patients, but I was looking for opportunity for growth. And I remember seeing kind of a big ad in the Boston Globe about an implant practice, and it was, they wanted surgical, prosthetic, they wanted some assisting. It was faculty from Harvard. I didn't know, but I said yes. And this is when I mentor younger hygienists, I'm like, when you kind of get that sense that you should just show up, and then further, you should say yes, just say yes. So they didn't have a lot of guarantees, and it was Dr. Paul Schnittman, who was chair of the implant program at Harvard Dental School, and he was starting his own clinic and seminars, and it was a surgical nurse in orthopedics that said, hey, Erin, you're going to unlearn a little bit of what you learned in dental hygiene school because we're going to train you on a medical model, and this was in 1991.
Wow.
So I said yes, and they said, we can kind of give you 2 days and see what happens. So cut to, I ended up becoming what really wasn't a job description yet, which was the implant treatment coordinator as a hygienist. I think I was pretty early on back in the early 90s. They trained me on bone regeneration, the surgical and the prosthetic. I onboarded more teams, and also I helped them teach seminars. We had year-long maxi courses, international, etc. And then we wore many hats, so I was helping writing marketing copy for the brochures, and he was still writing for professional journals, so we were editing white papers during lunch and things like that. So what was so important about that is that and I just want to cut back to before I saw that ad, that we hit a little dip, little recession, and I'll tell you, there were suddenly no jobs out there. And I drove an hour to a job at a pedo office that I think was a day and a half a week. And the gentleman, the doctor said, I got 300 resumes.
Oh, jeez.
And they're all great, meaning they're all about the same.
Yeah.
So I remember driving in traffic on the way home and thinking, I need to do something different. And then I saw that ad. I just said, yes. You want me to yes, I'll do. What else do you need? I said yes, and it created a whole opportunity, which really from there I leveraged for decades really since to have elevated and differentiated my career and have been speaking since as well. Also, what I did in Boston is I plugged into the Dental Hygiene Association there, Massachusetts Dental Hygienists Association, and formed incredible relationships there. And really, kind of the sisterhood and brotherhood, some of our guy hygienists out there that we love, is that there's always someone there to mentor, and there's always someone when they're climbing the rung, the other hand immediately extends down for somebody else. So that's really, such a value for our professional association. And I can also say that I took time off to have a family, and when I was ready to plug back in, well, I'll tell you, everybody, I called the president, my former president of Massachusetts Dental Hygienists Association, and she picked up the phone. She said, hello, Erin. We hadn't talked in years. I said, oh, you remember? She's like, come on.
Right.
What's going on? How can I help you?
Right.
And that's the value of being part of the association. Some of the younger hygienists or people that just haven't been involved don't get that.
Yep.
And then also we're plugged into all of the newer technologies. We come here, we talk to folks like you plug us into more vendors, all those products. so important because things are moving fast. Our patients show up and they're very aware, right? They're online all day long. So if they come in and they're asking you about a new technology, a new product, hey, what's this about my gum health and my heart? What's that about? You get better be able to. You better know about that, right? So
it's kind of an interesting thing how it's changed, huh?
How it's changed. And then I also, to further differentiate, I got a separate bachelor's degree in liberal arts and moved from Boston and Cambridge to New York City. So I kept my perio implant going. I worked at a beautiful office that I loved them and they loved me, and I actually broke into theater and film there. So I leveraged some of my marketing and PR, which was really like I was helping with dental seminars. I was saying earlier, it's the same thing, setting up for a conference here versus doing a special event or a theater show, something like that. But putting it all together and keeping my hygiene career going on the side. So I would, as we mentor other hygienists, I would say differentiate, which also leads into when I was so fortunate to meet Dr. Doug Thompson, who is he's a general dentist, but he's a speaker and has a tremendous amount of continuing education, and he's actually going to be finishing his fellowship in functional medicine.
There you go.
So we've taken the oral systemic to the next level. So he said, I want to be one of the few dentists that has this as well. And he teaches out at the Coys Center, which is a postdoc fellowship out in Seattle. So I met him and I thought, well, first of all, there's coming from where I came from in the implant world, where everything is super evidence-based. What took me a little while to get into the oral systemic world is I was finding practices that were saying, oh, we're holistic and biologic, and it was very vague. And then some of the protocols, I felt that I was looking for the data to show that we were moving the needle on the patients, because at the end of the day, we don't want to just make them feel good that they're using kind of natural products. Are we making them better? Are we moving the needle on the rest of their body? Are we helping them put that together? And how do we start those conversations? How do we build the relationship? Because, at conferences, we get very excited about, we take a lot of courses on oral systemic health and also saying, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we have this incredible education and we're feeling like we're not able to utilize it. We know we're part of the healthcare team. Heck, we know the mouth is part of the body, right? And what happens here happens here. But, how do we put that together? And so not only did I find clinicians that had the data, so he's developed a total mouth disinfection protocol that's kind of all in with chemical, mechanical, a very specific protocol to get people healthy and get off what I've always called the peri-go-round. So my hygienists out there will say, right?
Peri-go-round, I love it.
In perio offices, so who do the patients really talk to? They talk to us, right? So the doctor comes in, does the exam, pleasantries, they walk out, and then they lean in, hey, Erin, what's going on? Didn't we just scale these teeth 2 years ago? Didn't I just spend $2,500 2 years ago? And they just, and I figured these are the patients that are actually speaking up. Think of the people that are
not.
Exactly. So that's, I figured 10% are expressing their frustration and not understanding the value, really. And it even doesn't come down to the money if they feel like they're getting better or not just continually doing the same thing. One patient said, I feel like I'm shoveling against the tide, right? And just throwing a lot of money at it, but we weren't really diagnosing. So the other thing that we hear in kind of layperson's vernacular is precision medicine, right? People don't want cookie cutter treatments. So how do I treat, John's specific disease? We're going to diagnose it first, but we're going to use metrics. So we're using salivary diagnostics, so we can say, hey, here's the lab report. This is what's
look at
in
it on
your
the
mouth.
front end.
Exactly. So we know it's a very complex biofilm. It's not like we're dealing with one bacteria. it's bacteria, viruses, and yeast. It's very complex, it's very tenacious, and then we know some of those pathogens, and the reports are in a patient-friendly way, so there's kind of a red zone
Sure.
for specific pathogens, and then we can explain to them how those pathogens now are linked from our medical and medical research community into how it affects heart disease, and how actually when a atheroma in the heart erupts, essentially, it can break off and lodge in the brain for a stroke, or in the heart for a heart attack. So what's in that? So what they've researched is they find those oral specific pathogens that only live in the mouth lodged in that atheroma. That's kind of a mind blower, right?
Absolutely.
And then also with genetics, we know how certain bacteria are, I call them the gang leaders. They genetically turn on, so it's like the bad guy hanging out the water cooler at school. He's got the leather jacket on, right? And then there's a bunch of other kids that are just hanging out, not the benign bacteria. They're not causing any problem, but the bad guy, like PG, can genetically turn on the links to make them pathogens, and then they create a gang. And now they're really cranking out bad stuff, right? I remember when I read this report, I got angry. I was like, son of a gun. What the heck? Because beyond that, that bacteria can also turn off our immune cells, because our immune cells says, hey, there's infection, and they race, the cleanup crew, turns some of them off.
Yeah.
So that kind of ticked me off. I read that, and that was before I met Dr. Thompson. I'm like, yeah, this is one tenacious disease, and now that we know how it affects the heart. And I remember years ago when I was in the research community in Boston and Cambridge, there were endocrinologists and cardiologists, so this was now mid to late 90s, saying, good luck controlling your blood sugar if you've got oral inflammation.
Right.
So it was kind of early on for me, to be honest, to understand the science behind that. So now we, cut to 20 years later, now we have the data. Again, we have the data, we have the tests that are easy to administer.
Yeah.
And then with showing data to patients, what does that create? Ownership.
Absolutely.
You got to own it. You also got to value that, hey, I'm treating with a personalized treatment plan. It's precision medicine.
Yeah.
And we're going to show you with pre-testing and post-testing, not only how your bleeding's gonna, because this is what tricks us, is we say, well, it looks better after 8 weeks. But if you retest at that point, now we have almost 10 years of data. So our data shows that an average of 4.5 months to get to stability and move that needle on this biofilm, which is way longer than any of us.
Absolutely.
Right? And it shows the maintenance is so key. And but what we do is with the Wellness Dentistry Network is I always tell Dr. Thompson, you put 10 years of your life online, right? Which is incredible.
Yeah.
But we're also not the folks that'll say, hey, come take a 2-day course with us, and Monday you're hitting the ground, you're hitting that operatory hard with, right? You got all this information. We know it's a lot of information, there's a lot of data, and to kind of turn that established patient load to a different awareness takes time. So it takes teaching the team to get up to speed. So we have modules, videos, AV, little short pieces, longer pieces that they can do lunch and learn with. So you get the team up to speed, including the assistants and the front desk, because I'll tell you, I've learned that in 30 years, 60 minutes is still 60 min-- Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That I still need to do all this and still get everything else done and get everything else scheduled. And that's where the other piece, I have the patient ed tools and videos. So if we talk about nutrition, I can say, I pull up my hub, and then there's a computer screen for the patient. We watch a 2-minute PowerPoint about anti-inflammatory diet, which we started the inflammation conversation at the beginning, talking about their gums. So it's putting it all together, and the tools, and a little bit at a time, so we get to see them every 2, 3, 6 months. And once that education is complete, they value it, they get it, they're ready to accept patient. And also they know they're going to go home and say, you got to go to this practice, because you're going to get treatment like you've never had. And that's a huge practice. So now we have practices in 4 countries. We're not quite 2 years old. We have about 115 dental practices that we're helping. And they're pretty much all, we have some perio practices that are coming on. part of the value of that is, again, with the long arc of the periodontal or the implant experience that I have, is back in the day, it was all specialists doing it pretty much. And now I call it everybody's in the pool.
Right.
Everybody's in the pool, so somebody can go to Las Vegas and take a 4-day course and start
Right.
plugging in implants.
Right.
So we're seeing a lot of peri-implantitis. There's some great courses here, ladies, if you haven't, with Susan Wingrove, if you haven't taken it yet. And what we're realizing is that we can have really active infection in the mouth, and we're putting a medical device, like a hip implant,
Right.
in your mouth with this, sometimes raging biofilm infection.
Yeah.
And how do we expect that not to start cratering in a couple of years
Causing
if
problems.
we don't, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the perio world is coming into our world. And the other thing that I'm really excited about, particularly over the years being part of the professional association, is being able to lift up other hygienists.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible opportunity to elevate your career. And really, this is the next big thing. So
Yeah.
we have dentists we have one new active practice that he's said he's retiring in 2 years, and he wants to boost the valuation of his practice. So he's taking the next 2 years to implement this
A lot of
system.
it, yeah.
And the first week, he put our logo on his stationery, on everything, and he said, I am the only wellness practice in the whole area. That's us. We're going to make it our big differentiator, and I'm going to build the value of our practice before he goes to sell. So there's value all around for everyone, and it's
So
pretty
how do
cool.
people, Erin, share just real quick how they can find you guys,
Right.
learn about you? What's the best place to do that?
Right. Well, you certainly can start going to wellnessdentistrynetwork.com.
Okay.
That's our website. You can learn a little bit. I am Erin at wellnessdentistrynetwork.com if you want to shoot me an email, or find us on Facebook,
Okay.
Wellness Dentistry Network. And the community piece is also, I think, unique to our oral systemic implementation. Not only the implementation pieces, but the community and networking and mentoring is a huge part for us. And it's great to be able to connect people from around the world online and on the phone. We do
love
a
it.
Zoom room, and we all support each other. And really, this is a growing science. We're all growing together. And it's really great to be a part of.
Well, I think it's exciting, and I think, one last thing before we wrap here, that, you talked about the value of the ADHA, and I think what's so important, especially for, you said, like a lot of the younger hygienists, is that you don't always know when you join an association, like, what the value is. Same thing with the network, right?
Right.
People learn about it, but I think what's so powerful, there's so many of you that have been in this industry for a long time. You've clicked, like you said, now that you felt comfortable with the science, then that was time to put this thing together, engage, and then you have the experience of what it's like to build a community, like you guys have all been a part of the ADHA. So, I mean, I'm super excited about this. This cannot be anything better it's so much better for patients and the industry, for you guys to help. So, I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to see what goes on and learn more about it.
Yeah, same. And hope to see you at RDH.
Under one roof.
In DC,
that would
right.
be great.
That would be great.
Well, Erin,
All right.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. We'll be sure to go ahead, everybody, and put the information about the Wellness Dentistry Network in the show notes and on Facebook, and get the word out so more and more people look at the great things that you guys are doing.
And get patients healthy.
There you go.
Very good.
All right, and we'll enjoy the rest of your weekend here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You got it.